Hey, how you doing? It's Nick Digilio. That's me. What the hell's happening? Hey, thanks for checking me out on my YouTube channel. Subscribe. It's easy. It's free. Pretty much daily videos popping up on the YouTube channel. Check me out on Patreon. That helps me out. Keeps my videos and content coming. If you go to patreon.com/NickDShow, patreon.com/NickDShow, become a patron. Pick a tier. Donate every month. $3, $9, $25 a month, whatever you want. Bonuses will come your way. Extra stuff, including exclusive content that nobody but patrons get, and that includes the story behind what really happened at WGN, not the bullshit, the truth. And really, most importantly, baby, check out my podcast, shall ya? You can check it out. It's at Radio Misfits Podcast Network, and it's the Nick D Podcast. New episodes pop up every Tuesday, every Friday of each week. It's a lot of fun. It's really great, and I want to thank you for your support, because it's doing really, it blew up in popularity. So I thank you for that. But you can always be a part of it. RadioMisfits.com. Go to the Nick D Podcast. Subscribe now. Wherever you get your podcasts, every Tuesday and Friday, a new one pops up. Please support that. Okay, so yesterday I was lucky enough to be invited by the folks over at the Music Box Theater. Music Box Theater, which I've mentioned before on these YouTube videos and everywhere on my podcast, everywhere. As I've said a million times, the Music Box Theater here in Chicago is one of the greatest, most beautiful, magnificent movie theaters in the country, run by people who know what they're doing and who really care about cinema and care about film and really care about the audience's, what they experience, the experience that the audience has. We are lucky to have the people that run it in this city, and we are lucky to have that theater here. The programming is amazing. What they do there is unbelievable. And some of the things that they show, especially, coming up in the next month and a half or so, some unbelievable stuff is happening at the Music Box Theater. I know the programmers, I know the PR guys, Steve Procopi, who reviews movies with me, and Eric Childress on my podcast, on the Nick D Podcast. He is a PR guy there, works there as well. They know what they're doing over there. The people that run the Music Box know what they're doing, and they give a shit about movies. They really, really do. Anyway, I was lucky enough to be invited to a press screening of a brand new 35mm print of the 1974 Francis Ford Coppola masterpiece, The Conversation, with Gene Hackman. It starts this Friday. I'm taping this on a Wednesday. It starts this Friday, the 28th of January, and it'll run for only 1 week. It's only going to be there 1 week, and it's going to run this Friday and run every night and day, just for the week at the Music Box Theater. It's a brand new 35mm print of The Conversation. I saw it yesterday. The print is pristine. It looks beautiful. It's on celluloid. It's film. It's 35mm, therefore it's amazing. And you really, really need to go to the Music Box this coming week to see it. Starts this Friday, the 28th, January 28th, and it continues for that week. Get your ass to the Music Box. If you like movies, if you love movies, and you don't go to the Music Box to see The Conversation this week coming up, you're an idiot. Not an opinion, a fact. Make time for, I'm really busy. Fuck it. 2 hours. The movie's 2 hours. That's it. Put that 2 hours aside. Go to the goddamn Music Box. See The Conversation in 35mm. You'll thank me later. You will. So anyway, I got to see it. I got to see some people I hadn't seen in a while. A lot of press people I hadn't seen in a while. I've been going to press screenings for a while. In the past, year and a half after I got unceremoniously and ridiculously and unfairly fired by a bunch of assholes at WGN, I haven't been going out to movies, press things, or anything like that. But I'm starting to go back. Doing my podcast. I'm getting back into the thick of things, and I got to see people, critics, colleagues I haven't seen in a while. It was really nice. And on top of that, it was the Music Box Theater, which is a religious experience just to go to that place and to see movies there. That's what going to the movies is about. But on top of that, seeing in 35mm a beautiful, pristine, unharmed, almost looks like it's never been run through a projector print. That's how good the print is. Of The Conversation, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. To see that yesterday was a wonderful experience. Reconnecting with a bunch of friends and colleagues and professionals, getting back into the thick of things that I've been out of for a long time, thanks to being fired and the pandemic and and all the crap that went along with that, and getting my podcast, which, by the way, has been very successful over the past week and a half, getting back into the thick of it. Yesterday was a good day. Reconnecting, feeling good, seeing one of my favorite movies of all time. It was a fucking good day. Yesterday was a good day. So anyway, it's a remarkable movie if you've not seen it. Francis Ford Coppola. It's my favorite Francis Ford Coppola movie. Yes, in my opinion, better than the two Godfather movies, better than anything he's ever directed. I think it's his masterpiece. I think it's one of the greatest and most important American films ever made. Gene Hackman's best performance ever. It's still amazingly powerful to watch, even though the technology in it, this is 1974. It's a film about, a bugger, or a guy who records conversations, a sound guy, and he records this particular conversation between Frederick Forrest and Cindy Williams, yes, Shirley Feeney. And I don't want to get into it, but I mean, sure, you've read about this movie. If you've not seen it, you should, because it's a fucking masterpiece. Only one of the most important films ever made. And it's about what happens to these tapes that may get some people killed. And the guy who records these, the sound guy who records these tapes, this professional guy who can bug buildings and get, and record things. It's about what happens, the consequences of these tapes, and how this guy, Harry Call, feels about it. It's a character study of this guy. It's about loneliness, and it's about professionalism. It's about a lot of stuff. But anyway, it's a magnificent movie, and it looks great, and it's at the Music Box, and it's only there for a week, so you should go. The reason I bring this up, and the reason I'm doing this, is because one of the actors in the conversation, which I mentioned Frederick Forrest, I mentioned Cindy Williams, Alan Garfield, tremendous character actor, is also in this movie. An unbilled Robert Duvall plays a major role in the movie. Harrison Ford, a young Harrison Ford, is in the film. It's filled with terrific actors and great performances, written and directed by Francis Ford Coppola. An incredible score by David Shire, one of the best music scores ever by David Shire. Because it's about surveillance equipment and surveillance, the sound by Walter Murch and the sound mixing is incredible. And the film even works now, even though the equipment and stuff like that is like primitive and prehistoric by today's standards. It still works on that level as well. It's exciting, it's interesting, it's terrifying, it's suspense. Terry Garr, by the way, also in it. It's suspenseful, it's heartbreaking, and it is beautifully acted, and a beautiful, stellar, incredibly deep, significant, and heartbreaking and beautiful performance by the great Gene Hackman. But also in the movie is John Cazale. John Cazale was a tremendous actor, a stage actor who was discovered by Israel Horowitz, who was a pretty successful playwright back in the day in Manhattan in the 60s and 70s. And Coppola discovered him for The Godfather, and that was his first movie. And Cazale worked with a bunch of great actors, started out as a stage actor, and then ended up in movies, and he died at a very young age. He smoked like a chimney. He smoked packs of cigarettes, cigars, cigarettes, whatever he could inhale that had smoke and tobacco in it, he did, and he died of lung cancer. He was only 42 when he passed away. But he had worked with some of the greatest directors and some of the greatest actors on some of the greatest films ever made in that short span of time. He died at 42. He only made 5 movies. He was in a bunch of plays. He did a lot of stage work, off-Broadway and on-Broadway. And so his stage work was whenever he made a movie, he would always go back to the stage. Cazale would always go back to the stage, which was his first and true love. But he was only in 5 movies. These are the 5 movies that John Cazale is in. John Cazale is in The Godfather. He's in The Godfather Part 2. He's in The Conversation. He's in Dog Day Afternoon. And he's in The Deer Hunter. And then he died. He died before The Deer Hunter came out. He made the movie. He was sick while he made it. But those are the 5 movies he was in. Godfather, Godfather Part 2, Conversation, Dog Day Afternoon, Deer Hunter. That's not a bad fucking filmography. That's about as flawless a resume as you can possibly get as an actor. That's about as great a group of movies and a group of people and a group of artists that you could ever work with in one lifetime. Every one of the films were nominated for Best Picture. Every one of the films, the directors were nominated for Best Director. And in many cases, in 3 of the 5 cases, 3 of the 5 films won Best Picture, and the director won Best Director. The actors and actresses that worked with him in those movies were all nominated and won Academy Awards for being in those films. It's an incredible set of movies. He only made 5 movies, and all 5 of the movies are classics, American classics, 5 of the greatest American films ever made. And I don't think any other actor in the world has a resume like that. Now, he has that resume, and it's a flawless resume because he passed away, unfortunately, at the age of 42, as I mentioned. He was an incredible actor. John Cazale was an incredible actor. One of my favorite actors that ever lived. He did not have movie star looks at all. He was a kind of a very scrawny, skinny, weird-looking dude with a crazy receding hairline and a big nose. He could never really play leading men. He didn't have the kind of looks. He didn't play likable characters. I think The Conversation was the closest to a character that he played that was likable. And even he was kind of, like sad and kind of pathetic. Fredo, he played Fredo, for Christ's sake, in the Godfather movies. And he specialized in that kind of character, that scared, sort of flawed, sort of fucked up character that's got something going on behind those eyes. And Fredo is one of the greatest, characters in American film history. And for my money, he's my favorite character in the Godfather movies. Everybody, of the siblings, everybody's like, oh, Sonny, James Caan is awesome, and Michael, he becomes the leader of the Corleone family. Even Talia Shire, gets mentioned as the strongest, one of the stronger, family members, Corleone family members. But for me, it was always Fredo. Fredo was always the guy that I was most interested in. He was the character that I found the most, that had the most depth. He was the most three-dimensional. Clearly the most tragic character in the 2 Godfather movies. He's not in the 3rd one, which we can skip. But of the first 2 Godfather movies, in that Godfather saga, Fredo's the most interesting and the most heartbreaking and the most three-dimensional character of everybody. And a lot of that has to do with Cazale's performance. Cazale's unbelievable as Fredo. He's unbelievable in it. To go back and watch Cazale work, those 5 movies that we have, they're a gift. He lived a short time. He only lived 42 years. And to watch him in The Godfather, especially The Godfather Part 2, he's fucking unbelievable in The Godfather Part 2. We all know what Fredo does in Godfather Part 2, and how that's played out is magnificent. The scene in Godfather Part 2 where Michael goes out onto the little outdoor porch to confront him, and Fredo is sitting in that lounge chair, but it's like he's back. He's laying back in it, and he's trying to say that he's smart and he should have power as well, that he shouldn't have been skipped over. He's Michael's older brother, but he was never even considered to take over the family. It's an incredible scene, and to have watch him and Pacino work together, it's magnificent. It's fucking magnificent. And to watch Cazale in all those movies was great. Obviously, a majority of us never got to see Cazale on stage, which was really where to see him, it's been told. And that's where he met Pacino very early on, before either of them had any kind of movie career or any kind of success in films. He worked with a ton of actors on stage. That's how he met Meryl Streep, who became his lover and his life partner up until the day he died. They were inseparable. But working with Pacino on stage many times, that's how he got the part in The Godfather. Coppola saw him on stage, and Coppola brought him in, and Pacino knew him, and that's how he became Fredo. His performance in The Conversation, which I just saw again yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. He's amazing in that movie. It's a funny performance. The way that he works off of Hackman, he's got some key scenes in that movie where he works off of Hackman. And Hackman's character is a bit of a mystery. Not a bit of a mystery, a very big mystery. He doesn't let anything on to any of the other characters in the movie. Everything is very secretive. Doesn't want to let anybody into his personal life. Doesn't want to tell anything that may be, that may be a secret. Doesn't want to give anything away. He's a very, very secretive character, and Cazale's character brings out more in him. The scenes between the two of them are magic. Cazale at one point becomes sort of a pathetic character, as he often does in his movies. He's amazing in that, and it's a great performance. One of many great performances in The Conversation. Dog Day Afternoon. Dog Day Afternoon was the movie I was 10 years old when I saw Dog Day Afternoon, and Dog Day Afternoon was the movie where I realized what acting was. Sidney Lumet's masterpiece with Al Pacino and Cazale. They play two bank robbers who hold a bunch of people in a bank hostage. We've all seen it a million times. It is an incredible movie, one of my favorite films of all time. I don't even know how many times I've seen Dog Day Afternoon. I've lost count. It's in the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And Cazale's performance in that movie, everybody is great in it, but Cazale's performance in that movie is fucking amazing as Sal. The very sort of sad and goofy, funny, and dangerous. Like, you look in those eyes, and there's danger in there. Like, there's a scene in the movie where he's in a very frightened way asking Sonny, Al Pacino's character, if Sonny was serious about saying, because at one point he's negotiating with the hostage guys, the cops, negotiators, and saying that he'll start dropping bodies. He'll start killing people and throwing bodies out the front of the bank. And there's a scene where Sal says to Sonny, "Are you serious? Were you serious when you said that we're going to start throwing bodies out of the front of the bank?" And Sonny is trying to process this, and Sal's like, because I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to do it. And he's on the verge of tears, because Sal's on the verge of tears when he says this, and yet, he'll fucking kill somebody. That Sal's going to kill somebody. He will do it. If it's necessary, he'll do it. And it's a scene among many incredible scenes and acting moments in that film where you see like the terror and the sadness and the patheticness of the character, and yet there's something going on there. This guy will fucking kill somebody, and he won't hesitate to do it if he needs to. Again, a magnificent performance. And again, the stuff between Pacino and Cazale, in the Godfather movies and in Dog Day, because they had so many years together working on stage, it's magic to watch those two guys work. It really is. It's just fucking amazing. And Dog Day is one of those movies that I could watch anytime, anywhere, anytime. It's a movie that taught me what acting was when I was a kid. I remember watching Dog Day and going, oh, okay, this is what actors do. This is what acting is about. Pacino in particular, because it's a very showy, very juicy performance. The whole Etika, and the screaming and all that stuff. I was like, oh, cool. Like, acting was cool then. I realized, wow, man, this is cool. And it's a showcase for acting. Like all of Lumet's movies, all of Sidney Lumet's movies were a showcase for great acting and great actors. And it's a goddamn joy to watch those movies, and particularly Dog Day Afternoon. And Cazale, amazing as Sal in that movie. And then his final film was The Deer Hunter, and he was sick. He had been diagnosed with lung cancer when they were casting The Deer Hunter. And De Niro had to fight for him. De Niro, rumor has it, put up the bond because, everybody knew Cazale was sick and he was uninsurable. You don't want to hire a guy who might die while you're making the movie. And De Niro made sure he got the part. And De Niro never had any scenes with him in Godfather Part 2. They were in the movie, but they never had any scenes, obviously, because the De Niro stuff was Vito stuff, flashback, so he and Cazale never had any scenes together in the movie, but he wanted him in the movie, and he got to be in the movie, and he played Stan in The Deer Hunter, another movie with fucking magnificent performances, and Cazale is unbelievable in it. He's a sad character, again, sort of pathetic and kind of a prick. And again, there's a jealousy factor. He played jealousy really well. He played envy really well, Cazale did. Obviously, Fredo, that's his whole character is kind of based on this sadness, pathetic envy that he has for Michael, and being like this piss on, this peon in the family. And in Dog Day, he's very sort of envious of the fact that, that he, as this is all happening, Sonny's becoming like a star, like a TV star, and Sal is just this guy in the background. He can't even talk to the hostages and stuff like that. And even in the conversation, there's a bit of that because Harry, the character that Hackman plays, is so great at his job. He's such a great, surveillance guy. There's a great scene in the movie where they're at like a surveillance guy's convention, and Cazale's character is now working for Alan Garfield's character after like leaving, working for Hackman's character. And there's a scene where he's very ashamed of the fact that he's got to work with this fucking dick played by Alan Garfield. And there's a bit of that there too, an envy of that, an envy of how good Harry is at his job. And the same thing happens with The Deer Hunter. There's incredible stuff in The Deer Hunter, and incredible acting in it. And he was very sick at the time, very, very sick. And at that time, he'd met Meryl Streep. They did a play together before they both worked in Deer Hunter, and they became lovers and boyfriends and girlfriends, and they were life partners. I mean, even Meryl Streep, to this day, says that it was, a magical relationship. Not only did she love his talent, but she loved him as a human being. And by all accounts, he was an incredibly nice guy, worked his ass off on stage, was one of the most giving actors that you could possibly imagine working on stage with. He made you better. Every single actor that he's ever worked with, including, Meryl Streep, who he was in love with, and she was in love with him, and they had an incredible relationship together in real life. She said that she was a better actress because she worked with John Cazale. She was with him up until the day he died. She was with him on his deathbed. She was with him every day. During the making of The Deer Hunter, they supported each other. And again, he didn't have a lot of scenes, like a lot of intense scenes with her, but they worked, together. So it's a tragic story, and it kind of fits in with the characters that he played. A lot of Cazale's characters were tragic. 42 years old, he was taken away from us. He left behind 5 incredible movies, 5 incredible performances. Only 3 names, though. He only had 3 character names. He made 5 movies, but he only had 3 character names. He was Fredo in 2 movies. He was Stan in 2 movies, because in The Conversation he was Stan. His name was Stan, and in Deer Hunter his name was Stan. And he was Sal in Dog Days. So he only had 3 character names in 5 movies. He worked with some of the greatest actors of all time, made them look better, and those actors themselves, talk about how great he was. And it was just incredible to see The Conversation, on the big screen, being one of my favorite movies of all time. It was a wonderful experience, and it was wonderful to see John Cazale on the big screen again. I do want to mention there is a documentary that came out about 11 or 12 years ago, and it's called I Knew It Was You. I Knew It Was You, which is, of course, the famous line that Michael says to Fredo when he kisses him. He says, I knew it was you, you broke my heart, in Godfather Part 2. Title of this documentary is called I Knew It Was You, and it's all about John Cazale. Because a lot of people don't know who he is. You kind of recognize him. He's an interesting, weird-looking dude. And again, some of the greatest movies of all time, you're like, oh, that guy. Nobody really knows his name. Everybody knows Fredo, but nobody really knows John Cazale or, like, the incredible history that he had as a stage actor. But his name is John Cazale, and I happen to champion the character actor. I happen to be a fan of those guys where you go, oh, that guy, like M. Emmett Walsh, J.T. Walsh, those guys, those kind of guys, those character actors that you really kind of don't know their names, but then you see him in a million movies. Cazale was that kind of guy, and it's available on Amazon Prime. It's available on Prime Video. I Knew It Was You. It's on VOD as well. You can get it on video on demand, but it's available on Amazon Prime. And they talked to De Niro. They talked to Pacino in this documentary. Israel Horovitz, who was the playwright that put Cazale and Pacino in their first plays. They talk with Meryl Streep, who talks not only about his acting and working with him on stage and in movies, but also about their incredible personal love and relationship and how she was there with him until the moment he died, till the last breath he took. Talks with Sidney Lumet, Francis Coppola, the people that he's worked with. Talks with his brother, his older brother, about his life and about his death. Talks with Richard Dreyfuss, who was in one of his first plays, and that's where Cazale got discovered. He talks with John Savage. They talk with Gene Hackman about being in movies with him. Savage was in Deer Hunter, Hackman obviously in The Conversation. So all these people that were his contemporaries that worked with him talk, especially Pacino, because he knew Pacino a long time ago. Talk about these great stage stories and great film stories and how they improvised some stuff, like the line in Dog Day Afternoon where Sonny asks Sal what country would he like to go to if because they have to leave the country. What country would you like to go to? And Sal says Wyoming, and it's this beautiful moment that's funny, but also like that's Sal. Sal doesn't know Wyoming isn't a country, and it's a very funny line and a great classic line. It was improvised in the moment. Lumet talks about it. Pacino talks about it in this documentary. But the really fun stuff is when they were talking about people who are acting now, contemporaries now who were really affected by Cazale, who Cazale became an inspiration for these guys, like Steve Buscemi. who is, of course, a legendary character actor, very similar in style to Cazale, talks about how when he saw Cazale in movies, particularly, The Godfather, how he identified with that guy, and that how his family said, hey, you know what, you're the Fredo of the family, they talk about. Philip Seymour Hoffman, who since the documentary obviously has passed away, talks about how Cazale inspired him. And Sam Rockwell. I mean, these are the like major fucking dudes who are not leading actor guys. They're not like handsome leading men. They're character actors. Guys like Buscemi and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Sam Rockwell are the greatest character actors of today and contemporaries that were clearly inspired by Cazale. And to watch them talk about and analyze even the most minute details of Cazale's performances in those 5 movies, to see Philip Seymour Hoffman just gush about watching Cazale in The Godfather or in Dog Day, to see Sam Rockwell isolate certain like movements that Cazale made in those movies and how they inspired him. And you can see that in Rockwell's work and in Buscemi's work and Hoffman's work and some of these other younger actors who would not be as good an actor as they are had they not watched Cazale work. So anyway, watching the conversation yesterday on the big screen in 35mm was as great a cinematic experience as you can possibly have, and I can't encourage you enough to get your ass out to the Music Box starting on Friday for 1 week only to see one of the greatest films ever made on the big screen. Beautiful, pristine 35mm print, but to watch John Cazale. The 5 movies, again, if you want to rewatch the great work of John Cazale, only 5 movies: Godfather, Godfather Part 2, Dog Day Afternoon, The Conversation, and The Deer Hunter. And to see this documentary about it's only 40 minutes long. It's short. It's an HBO documentary production. It's available on video on demand, but you can see it on Amazon Prime Video. And it's called I Knew It Was You, and it's all about John Cazale. So I just wanted to take this time not only to thank the Music Box for, again, showing great stuff, and more stuff to come, like in the next month or so at the Music Box. Some amazing shit is coming up at the Music Box. I'll tell you about it on my podcast, is where you really got to check it out. Subscribe to my podcast right now, radiomisfits.com, and wherever you get your podcasts, the Nick D Show podcast, subscribe now. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to give a shout out to the great John Cazale, taken away from us way too young at 42. But he left behind 5 movies. And they're pretty good. And the performances are pretty good. Anyway, so if you want to see one of the greatest character actors of all time in one of his great performances on the big screen, get to the Music Box and see The Conversation this week. So anyway, John Cazale rules, and the documentary is great too. So anyway, hey, enjoy the veal and have a nice day.